protecting. They're all female qualities. They're all nurturing, they're and that's why they jump to the conclusion female. Female only means something here where we are. And there was one guy that I spoke to, and he said, no, it was a male. One person. So I said, why did you say it was male? He said, well, it was God. And I think that's his subconscious jumping in there and filling in the gaps. I couldn't find anybody else that said it was a male person. It was always a female type entity. They never see them, they just feel them. They just know they're there. Very interesting. Near-death experiences are very interesting.
Yeah, near-death experiences, they seem to be the one of the best ways, apart from a psychedelic, that you can really split your consciousness off from the rest of your being, and thereby learn that consciousness is what you fundamentally are. Because once you've had a near-death experience and floated out of your body and looked down on your body from above, I've not had such an experience, but I've spoken to several people who have, then you realize that it's obviously not the brain that generates consciousness. If you're looking at your body from above, your brain's in your body, and if you're looking at it from somewhere else, obviously then consciousness is coming from somewhere else. And so it's hard to have an experience like that and then come back into your body and think, oh, that's right, my brain was generating consciousness all along. It's you've gone past that once you have an NDE.
Science has looked into this subject very, very deeply for many, many years, and they still can't find out that your brain, they still can't prove that your brain produces consciousness.
That's right.
They can't nail it down. They've been trying for decades and they can't nail it down. Consciousness is external. We're just a receiver.
Yeah, people say, I meet a lot of people who actually say, oh, they can actually measure consciousness. And I say, well, what instrument do they use to measure it with? And they can't answer that. You can measure heat with a thermometer, of course, and you can measure other things with an EEG and so on. But what instrument can you detect consciousness with? There's no such instrument.
Well, there's this very interesting experiment that started in Princeton University in the mid-'80s. And they call it the Global Consciousness Experiment. And it was just a basic, I don't know if anybody's looked at this, it's a random number generator. It was a binary code, series of ones and zeros. And they noticed that at certain times, the numbers stopped being random and they started getting a uniformity. And then it went back to being random again. And then when they put a, for want of a better word, almanac of the Earth of what's happened underneath it, they found out that these things stopped being random when there was a tsunami. Then this was an earthquake, that was a volcano. 9/11 was one of these such incidents. 5 hours, I think it was, before 9/11, the numbers stopped being random, and then it hit, and it took 2 days to go back to being random again. So this is the Earth and everybody on it and their consciousness all going down the same routine, all doing and looking at the same thing and thinking the same thing, and it's an outpouring of grief for the whole world. And I think that, and they've got hundreds of these generators, these number generators all around the world now, and they're all giving the same results. So there's something there, and they're on the verge of discovering a tool, if you like, to prove it's there. But because the machine they've built and the answers it gives is made of atoms, it's still only thought. Everything's thought, which is consciousness itself.
Now, whenever you guys were discussing earlier the thing about receptors, the thing that stuck out to me was something that I think of a lot, and it comes to the actual brain. Our brain has receptacles, and these receptors inside of our brain transmits thoughts from place to place with electricity. So whenever I look at things on any level, I think of it on the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. They're all connected. I also believe that it's okay to have your head up in the clouds, but your feet need to be firmly on the ground. You know what I mean? There's a little bit too much, too far, and then there's not enough. You know what I mean? So you got to find that balance in your life. So with that in mind, I look at it like this, you know, maybe science doesn't fully understand what those receptors can actually do. Maybe there is something physical going on that nobody knows about because we're not scientifically evolved, I guess you could say, you know, to understand fully what the brain is doing. I think scientists have agreed with me on that too, by the way. I'm not quite sure about that, but I'm pretty sure we don't really know much about the human brain. So, and then another thing too, you were just talking about it, Mike. There's a guy I really love watching on YouTube, and he has his own show. It's called New Thinking Aloud. I go
Oh,
on.
he's awesome. Jeffrey Mishlove.
Yes. Yeah.
Jeffrey Mishlove. Yeah, he's wicked. He's had some amazing interviews.
Yes. And he had this one on there where a guy was talking about they took these little bitty robots. You remember back in the 80s they had those little marching robots. He stuck them in a pool table, and he tried to group them up and everything, and he found out that these robots, which were electronical, actually wanted to eventually start forming up into groups together on their own. You know what I'm saying? A machine. So what causes these machines to want to actually group up as a group rather than go randomly along any way they wanted to? Eventually they did always group up into ones and twos and threes, you know what I mean? But they always tried to do it. And I thought that was interesting when you were discussing that. And if you've never checked him out, I'd suggest checking him out. He is an excellent guy. So,
Has
I
anybody
recommend it too. He's been doing great work for 30 years as well. Like, he's got interviews from the 1980s that are absolutely genius.
Has anybody seen the experiments with the Newton's cradle? Do you know that Newton's cradle thing where you got the ball's here and it goes tick, tick, tick?
Mm-hmm.
You've done, but they've done that. This is all over YouTube, and they've put a board across all of them, and they've got this huge setup with this Newton's cradle, and then they pull the board away and it goes like a wave, and then the wave keeps changing. It's almost as if it's changing frequency, and eventually they're all beating together. And there's another experiment with sound where they've got a tuning fork. They put a ping pong ball up against a piece of metal, and they've got a tuning fork, and they put that up against another piece of metal, and when you hit the same resonant frequency of the ping pong ball and the left piece of metal, the ping pong ball jumps. But when you get a different tuning fork and you use a different resonant frequency, it doesn't move at all. There's so many legends and rumors about the pyramid in Giza, where the stones were levitated into position, but with the use of sound, and everybody's poo-pooed this idea, and then all of a sudden videos of cymatics started turning up on YouTube, which they're all over it. You type in cymatics, it's amazing to watch these tiny pieces of sand that are given a particular frequency. They produce shapes, and they start going through quite a lot of the religious shapes, like the cross and all the rest of it. And the higher the frequency, the more intricate the shape is. But you see these shapes all over Christian churches. These particular, especially in stained glass windows, high up on stained glass windows. And they've been jumping out at me for quite a while. Then I discovered quite a few years ago, 10 years ago, cymatics. It's just this, what we think is real, is just so much more than we've been really dumbed down. The gist of it, we really have been dumbed down, and we can't. How can we draw a conclusion on an ethereal world or a spiritual world? Because we're looking at that with the eyes that we think this is real. But when we find out what this actually is, what we're doing here, then we can look at it, and then I'll guarantee it will be very similar. It's just that we thought it was different.
Yep.
Guys, can I ask a question that's sort of a little bit different from this? It's something that you've mentioned earlier. You mentioned about joining dots that weren't there. Like, I have that experience a lot, and I find it very disconcerting because I can't tell what's real and what isn't real. What do you have
Nothing's
to say
real.
about that joining dots that's not there?
Yeah, nothing's real. So you can join any dots you like.
Really?
Nothing's real. So any two things could potentially be dots that are joined on some different level, on some higher or lower level. Yeah, like once you abandon the materialist atomist explanation, because the materialist explanation says everything is a coincidence. Like Michael said, the spiritualist explanation, once you understand how things work, you realize there are essentially no coincidences. But the materialist explanation is that everything is a coincidence, and that there is no higher meaning to anything. So yeah, it's different.
So I'm not mad.
No, not at all.
No.
I've been having these gut feelings. I can see two, and they could be half a day apart. Two situations occur, and I'm going over it in my head, and in my head I'm looking at the two, and I know they're linked. I have no idea how they're linked. I have no idea why they're linked, or what the outcome's going to be, but I know they're linked. And then you go 2 months down the line, poof, there we go. There was the link. I've now found the link. And I've been doing that for years. It drives me mad, exactly the same. Because you do feel like you're inventing things.
Well, that actually is a process, though, because, like, excuse me, but just think about this real quick, okay? You remember the old puzzle books they used to have? Everybody loved going in and connecting the dots, okay?
Yep.
It's been something that everybody's been discussing. They've been doing it for at least 150 years, you know, and that is a topic that's really interesting that nobody really has a conversation about. But there is something in our mind that makes us to where we have to connect those dots. Now, what happens with what you guys are discussing is that's an overdrive. You know what I'm saying? Something above human power is causing that because these synchronicities are happening. You know, like with my son, when he first moved in with me, we had a tree where the branches were getting real close to the ground. And just out of nowhere, I told him, I was like, before you move out, you're going to climb up that tree and you're going to voluntarily cut that tree branch down. He's like, oh, no, I'm not. He swore up and down he wasn't going to do it. And a week after he moved out, I don't even think he remembered the conversation, but a week after he moved out, the freaking branch collapsed. And guess what he did? He climbed up that freaking tree and cut that branch down. That was 2 years after we had that conversation. Just out of nowhere, I knew that he was going to end up cutting that tree because he was so obsessed with trimming that damn tree. You know what I mean? He was so obsessed. And I knew that was what he was going to do. I just didn't know the circumstances of why it was going to happen, but I did know at the time. And when he went out and did it, I just sat there and I kept quiet, and I was like, he probably doesn't even remember having that conversation, you know? So
That's the thing with things like that. People don't, because it's not immediately happening within 10 or 15 seconds. They dismiss it. And they forget that they've had the conversation. I've been in similar situations. And I've had to remind, and I went, do you remember that medium I went to see? This was a while ago, to a friend of mine he's a steel erector. So he's a very hands-on material person. Do you remember that medium I went to see? Yeah. Now look at what's just happened. And he went, oh yeah, that's gone. But you know, 20 seconds down the line, he's gone, whoop, it's all gone. He's forgotten about it again. But I think that's what this movement is doing. To wake up the public, you have to reach a tipping point of understanding. And then, like the 100th monkey experiment, it's a very fascinating experiment. Some people say it was real, some people say it wasn't. But when your consciousness reaches a tipping point, then everybody just accepts it as being right. And I think that's the point we have to go to.
Yeah, it could happen here. We get 99 people on this show, and then there could be the 100th person who may have otherwise been an extremely skeptical materialist, atheist, and they listen to us and they think, well, if that many people are talking about spirituality and making sense, there must be something to it. And then bang.
I've got a friend. My history is I'm a bit of a geek. I build computers and so on and so forth. So talking to a friend of mine about this subject, who's a very material person, and his son was in the room, and I've known this family for 30 years, and his son went, Mike, if anybody else told me that, I would immediately write them off. Immediately. He said, but because I understand what a logical person you are, that gives that what you've just said so much credibility, but that's not what the general public see, is it? He's seen it over 30 years. When the general public see you for the first time, and all of a sudden you go, oh, nothing's real, you know, and they go, oh, here we go. he's fell off the earth, that one there. He's away with the fairies.
Yeah, the same thing happened to David Icke. I don't know if you know much about David Icke, but you've mentioned a couple of things that he has also spoken about, like the random number phenomenon. And he had the same deal. He took ayahuasca in South America, and then he came back to Britain and started telling everybody about how infinite love is the only solution, and that God is consciousness, and that karma and reincarnation is real, and that the universe is a fundamentally all right place to be. There's nothing to really worry about. And you saw what happened to him. You know, he's famously written off as somebody who's completely nuts. And really, if I think about it, he's probably the most accurate predictor of anything that I know of anybody in the world.
See, the thing is with David Icke, he tells you the answer, without explaining any of the routes. Now that's okay when you're talking to like-minded people, but when you're talking to the general public as such, you have to try to keep them with you and explain the route, and then the end answer makes total sense. But when you just go, gosh, no, none of this is real, like, oh, hold on a minute. There's no lead up to it. It's like a slap round the face. Because he's done a video with his I sat and watched his video, I can't remember what it was called now, his film, and he said, I bet you think that chair is real that you're sitting in. And it sounds like a line out of The Matrix, which was another fantastic film about this whole subject.
Yeah.
Now, Michael, there was something else or a couple things that you mentioned that I really think that would be cool to talk about too. And it's like in our interview, you were talking about that tsunami wave of information that flowed into you. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I really think that that's important because there's a process that was going on there. You know, like first I asked you about that kind of feeling that you had with Russell whenever he moved into the YMCA and you had that connection.
Yeah.
And then you started going into discussing the tsunami wave of information that was flowing in, and then you also mentioned feeling pains in the stomach whenever you experience these kind of events that happen, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you said also that it felt like you were having a seizure at some point. And, And with the visions, that part about the jigsaw puzzle and stuff like that, like these to me, it sounds like processes that you were going through, you know what I mean? Physical processes as well as emotional and mental and spiritual, you know what I mean? So
when I was putting the book together, it was called The Truth originally, and this was back in I think it was about June 2011 I actually finished this. And as I was putting the information together, it happened 3 times. I'd be writing down things, and I'd be looking at one screen on the computer and then looking at the other screen, and I'd read a line out of this piece over here, and then there was a biblical reference over on this screen, and you know, Jesus said so and so and so and so, and I'm going, oh, hang on a minute, that fits in with what I'm finding out about quantum physics over here. There's a link with quantum physics, and I didn't know what the link was. I now know it was DMT, because he was in the scene and he practiced the ritual of the twice born. But there was a link, and I didn't know and my room was full of these bits of paper all up on. It was like a nutty professor's room. Seriously, it was quite embarrassing when anybody saw it, because I go, oh no, don't ask. So there was bits of paper all over where I'd found clues and links between things, but I didn't know what the link was. I knew they were linked, but I didn't know why. And then all of a sudden, I'm writing things, and I read one line, writing things down, read a line here, and I went, and it was like the way I explain it was like walking into a cold swimming pool on a boiling hot day, and the cold water hits you around the navel area, and you can't quite catch your breath. And as I was leaning back like this, the pictures in my mind, it went like this, and it was bits of jigsaw like this all in front of me, and I went, stop, and it went, just stopped. So I got up, I went and made a cup of coffee, and I come back again, and then I said, show me slowly. And tiny little bits of jigsaw, one at a time, was put in place. I could see them, I could physically see them, not in reality, but in my mind's eye. And each piece of jigsaw was a piece of what I was putting on the wall. So, and I just followed it, and it started to tell a story. The story was mapping out in front of me. And it went from bits of paper all over the place with blue tack to one long line where all the bits matched, and I could read that piece in that one, and it matched with that, and it matched with that, and the story just gradually unfolded. And then when I'd finished that, I'd moved them all away, put them out, and I started mapping the next piece up. And this was about biblical fact, the silly things that we've been told that aren't true, and they're easily provable, but with a bit of research. And 3 times, unbelievable. And I've never been through anything like that since, and that was over I'd say it was 3 times over a 6-month period. And then when I went to see the medium, again, Lorraine Reese, an amazing medium, absolutely unbelievable, frighteningly accurate. She turned around and said, "You've done it." So I said, "Done what?" She said, "You've done what you've been asked to do." I said, "Well, I don't even know what I was asked to do, to be honest with you." So this thing that she said in one of the previous, that Russell's come to get you because you've got a job to do, she said, "You've done it." I said, "But nothing's come out of it." She went, "No, it will. Don't worry, it will. Just go with the flow." So that was, and I ended up with the book. I'm not the sort of person to write a book, especially on biblical fact and the occult, which is the term for all this, and everybody backs away from that word, occult. They'll go, "Oh, no. Means evil." No, it doesn't. It means secret. Something have you come from the word occult. It means secret and hidden. They go, "Oh no." Anyway, I got to go.
Yeah.
As if you're talking about devil worship or something.
So what do you guys think about that, with how he explained right there all the things that happened to him in that moment? Like, what do you think in your mind was taking place?
I've had a very strangely similar physical experience to what you describe, Michael, of that cold stuff happening. So about 2 years before my daughter killed herself, I started getting this really strange feeling in my body of, I used to call it skin shocks. And it was just like you say, that cold thing, that thing. And it would just happen out of the blue for about 2 years. When the policeman came and told me, it happened to my whole body, from my fingers all the way through to the center of my body. And it stayed in my body for about 2 days. And then it slowly sort of started clearing from my extremities. And since then, it's stayed in this similar. but I've never heard anybody explain it or talk about anything like that. And when I went to try and speak to the doctor about this thing that was happening to me, he just you're the first person I've ever heard that said anything even like remotely connected to what I was experiencing. So
Well, when I've spoken to mediums about this, because it was very concerning.
yes, yes.
As if I was having some sort of seizure or a problem, and I didn't realise that it was going on. When I've spoken to mediums, they say no, that was a download. Something was downloading. The information and knowledge was just hitting you, and it really was like a tsunami of information, and it was just overwhelming. I'm quite a logical person, and to sit and talk like this has taken me 17 years to be able to say this, but it was an information download, and you're probably coming across the same thing, but with a more of a direct item, more of a direct piece of information.
Okay. Fascinating.
I had a dream New Year's Day, and it's just slightly linked to what we're talking about. Basically, in a dream, it was I kept seeing code all night. I was seeing code, like 5-6 figure numbers, letters, all coming across like on a black screen, white numbers, and this went on for hours. I kept seeing it, and I thought, what the hell does this mean? Then I spoke a word of a language that I don't know, but I spoke it. It meant something, I don't know what. And there was something else. I've told Bob this, and what was the last bit? Can you remember? But I said it in my video as well. I can't remember what the last bit.
Cocoon. Was it?
Cocoon. Oh yeah.
There was
and
a
I saw like a huge like village, town, city, and it had like some sort of cocoon on it. And I saw that all day, and I don't know what I knew I was meant to talk about it because the dream had ended, but I kept seeing that village or that town all day. I kept seeing it, and I still don't know the proper meaning to it, other than the fact it had some sort of cocoon around it. But I've not been able to understand what all that meant. I don't know if it makes any sense to any of you guys, but especially the code. I've got no understanding what that means. So I just thought I'd share that with you because we've been talking on that sort of, But I've had the number 444 is it coming up loads of times. It did come up before the new year, and I was told that it's through a communication with angels, something like that. And it actually, once I was open to that, I felt and I did have communication with angels. For me, how I know the difference is angels tend to communicate with like visually. They show you images, whereas other forms of communication from your higher self could be images, but it can be like a spoken word. But with angels, it tends to, with me anyway, it always tends to be like images, always images, or show me something, and I think, oh right, that makes sense, and I go on from there. So that's just my view on it.
What was you getting ready to say, Events?
I was just going to say it would be a good topic for perhaps another show. Like I feel like we've got enough. We could easily do another show about the similar sort of material. Mm-hmm. We've got enough to talk about. I think we're only scratching the surface, really.
It's
especially when it comes to what people out there in the wider audience already understand. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know for a fact that there's a lot of really highly educated people out there who haven't even begun to think about the world in terms of spirituality. They're still purely in the materialist paradigm because they've never met anybody they respected who could explain anything else. And that's what I think we can do well. Have a show full of not completely crazy people, maybe slightly crazy, but not completely crazy. And so people can listen to us and think, hey, these guys just might be onto something.
Sounds like a plan. Now, when you mentioned the word paradigm too, that is something that really stuck out to me on the tech talk that me and Tan and Mark had when it comes to AI and the thought process that goes into AI. Now, in order for AI to work, it has to be able to freaking understand the differences in paradigms. So it has to do a paradigm shift. So when we're thinking, okay, the one thing that separates us from artificial intelligence is the fact that whenever something pops up, something changes at the snap of the finger, our brain is able to freaking change from the old paradigm to the new paradigm, which includes that change. Okay, and computers have never been able to do that, and that's what they're working on right now. And I find that pretty interesting too. Whenever you always bring paradigm up, and that sticks out to me, you know.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. And I agree. I think there's a whole lot of stuff that we could be discussing. See, this is the good stuff. This is what people really should be wanting to listen to, because we're talking sensible, you know. And I respect each and every one of you, because the stuff that you've said is really, really fascinating for me. You know what I mean? I love it. I love doing research on this stuff and finding out things and going deeper into it. So it's just like I went through and discussed with you guys the stuff that Michael had just brought up in his interview, you know, which this stuff, I've heard it over and over again, okay? It wasn't as much as what Mike was talking about with Summer, but she even brought up the same basic principles in a different way, you know? But you can always hear it if you just take time to listen to people. And there's more to it. John brought it up earlier today when it came to Summer. I mean, there's just something that's there that's more than just seeing ghosts. You know what I mean? And it'd be easy to just sign it off as saying, "Oh, she just saw a ghost. She just saw this." But it goes with generations. You know what I mean? This stuff happens with people through generations, grandmothers to mothers, to daughters, sons, fathers, and I've been noticing that a lot too. So that's an aspect of it that really sticks out to me.
When you look at how your subconscious mind gets programmed between the ages of birth and 7, your surroundings will program your subconscious, and then your subconscious builds brick walls between, well, that's not possible because I'm here, and I will never do that because I haven't got this, and they're the brick walls. They're the knee-jerk reactions that you react to for the rest of your life. Psychology tells you that if you do something a certain amount of times, it gets instilled into your subconscious, and that's how you can retrain yourself. It's very difficult. You can retrain yourself, but with the children, as you just said, like if the mother's psychic, then the daughter is more inclined to be psychic. It's because they're in an environment where these brick walls have not been built. So the brick walls where Dad, I just saw something. No, you didn't. Take the notice of that. You know, they don't say that. And I know a woman whose mother was psychic. Her mother never said, "Don't take any notice of that. It's just ignore that." She always encouraged it. Yeah, you may well have seen it, and it becomes such a natural thing, which it is. This is all nature. This is all Mother Nature at work. That's what we're talking about. So that, I mean, most of the public have gone down this route with the big thick brick walls. I can't do this. I can't do that. I've got a friend incredibly negative because of the way he was brought up. And I'll say, well, just do that. I'd never be able to do that. So what are you talking about? It's just click that on there. This was a computer. And he clicked it. He went, I've never done anything like that before. You just clicked. All you done was clicked it. What's the matter? You've just done that. Wow. But he was forever saying, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do this.
Yeah.
So this inbuilt thing mediumistic and psychic thing, everybody's got it, as far as I can see. Everybody has it. It's just that we have to get to a point in our subconscious where we know it's possible, and then it will become more and more into use every single day. I had an experience with a woman that was training me to be a medium, and I never knew. I just thought she was training me to meditate. And then she started mentioning the word circle every now and again, and I'm going, hold up, go with the flow, go with the flow. Don't say anything, just go with the flow. And then she ended up putting me in front of people. Right, you've got to give this lady a reading now. And I'm going, Sue, what are you doing to me? I can't do something like this. And I ended up giving this woman a reading. And this was at the point when I didn't realise whether everything was just pure consciousness, so it's just a stream of information, or whether these mediums actually talk to dead people, the dead people's consciousness. I didn't realise the two was intertwined, and I was dancing between the two. Yeah, they do. No, they don't. It's just information in the universe. And then I gave this woman a reading. I said, the lady at the back there, and I said, I'm getting a vivid image, which I was. It was very vivid in my mind's eye. I said, there's a guy laying on his side. I said, he's passed. And then I started coming out with things like, I could tell you his trousers were all gathered where his trousers were about 5 sizes too big, and he put a big belt on and he pulled it close. He had brown hair, but he used to dye it black. I could see the swirls on the carpet, and she's going, no. I feel like a right one now. You know, I think to myself, I just want the ground to open up in front of about 40 people, this was. So I said, okay, no problems. And I got given words, don't you dare do that. And I thought, and it was an instruction that was different to the picture. And the instruction was from somebody and to someone. So it was almost like someone saying it. And that was different. But I didn't say that. I said, okay, no problem, I'll just get me coat. And then we had a bit of an interval. And then the other woman got up and she went, I'm getting given the same picture now. I said to the same woman, there's bloke died, so-and-so and so, this happens, that's happened, that's happened. The same sort of route. And then she went, and he's telling me to tell you, don't you dare do that. And I went, oh my God. Whatever these people do, I've just done it. I had no idea what I'd done, and it took about 3 days for me to get my head around. No, the consciousness that is that person hasn't died. It is one of the streams of a global consciousness. So there's 8.5 billion streams all making up a global consciousness, and we are all one separate stream. And that was a real turning point for me, because now I know that they talk to not dead people, because the person doesn't really exist. They're talking to that person's personality. That was a big turning point for me.
I think a lot of people also forget the reason why people are called mediums. The term medium, you know what I mean? It's not a power or anything that's coming from within yourself. You're a vessel for this stuff to travel through, you know what I mean? And I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't take into consideration. And mediums have been saying that for years. I mean, forever. And when I say years, I'm talking thousands of years. You know what I mean? They've always had that principle. So that's the one thing that I do want to mention as well. I mean, you just the vessel that this information can travel through, you know. I think John had to go off and he said that there's going to be times where he'll have to break away and everything. With what was been said, is there anything else that you guys would like to add to it that we've not discussed? Nothing?
No, not really.
Now, before we go, though, I do want to mention that Bob Dub convinced me to come on and do a stream with her about what dualism, yeah, duality, and that's something that we've all been kind of talking about and everything. I know Mike mentioned it and everything, and Vincent's big on that too. I'm pretty sure he's mentioned it a few times. So if you guys want to come on to her show with me, I finally was able to convince her to do a show. I ended up, she came on to this one, well, we need to do one, and then I told her, well, you know, I really didn't want to put Into the Abyss onto the schedule, so I was able to take my show off the schedule and put hers on there, so we're good. And,
Roger, I don't remember this happening this way. It's not the same memory. I don't have the same memory of these events that you seem to have.
I'm delusional. You got to be careful with me. I'm delusional.
I see so.
But
they're on different days. Into the Abyss and Dualities. They're on different days.
But she's. We're gonna get it going and everything, and if you guys want to come on and be a part of that, you're more than welcome. I believe, what is that, tomorrow?
Tomorrow, midnight tomorrow.
And I think it's the masculine and the feminine. That would be the perfect way of starting it out. If you guys want to come on in and check it out, you're more than welcome to show up, you know. This is basically how we do it. We just hang out and we talk about this information and stuff like that and let it go from there. So you guys, how did you like the episode so far?
It was cool. I love today's episode. It was brilliant. I love Michael's got some really interesting stories.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that we can offer something for him and for the other guys in the stream here, that we can offer like a safe haven for people who want to talk about non-materialist topics, but tired of being laughed at when they try and bring them up.
Right.
Someone wants to bring up something other than just the sport and the booze and the politics. Yeah, it's hard sometimes. So I think we can really provide a service for a lot of people by doing this show.
Yeah. And I was really interested in getting all you guys together because you guys really fit together, being honest. Like hand in a glove to be serious. Because like John, he's quiet and everything today, but he's big on vibrations and stuff, and that's what Bob talks about, vibrations, and so does Vince too, don't you?
Yeah, vibrations, frequencies, energies, they all tie together.
And then John contacted me, said, man, you gotta interview this guy. And I'm sitting there and I watched his video, and the more I listened to him, I'm like, oh my goodness, I do have to freaking interview this guy. So I interview him, and then he just starts saying a whole bunch of more good stuff, you know what I mean? I was like, oh wow. So I knew that it would be a good deal to have everybody come together and do a show together and get this stuff out. And like you said, Vincent, we could do so much more. You guys are always welcome. I don't want to set it up as a scheduled event, you know what I mean? So whenever we do this, it'll be organized on a certain day, and we can get it together and have it going good. So
Yep, it sounds brilliant.
Yeah. Now, John, you want to say something?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
I'm glad that everybody showed up here. I'm glad that you guys were able to get everything out and say what you needed to say. I'm completely amazed by it. So, with that being said, I want to thank everybody for being here, and we'll end it here. I'll talk to you guys later.
Brilliant, guys. It's lovely to meet you.
All right.
Cheers, guys. Love to talk to you all. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Very lovely. Thank you, guys. See you.
See you soon.
Bye, guys. Sorry I didn't have my mic on.